incoming, folks.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, incoming.
What's crack-a-lackin', folks? Welcome to the Omnic Lab. We're a podcast that focuses on the strategies inside of the game of Overwatch. We help you learn through trial and error in the lab, even if things like today get really crazy and blow up in your faces, especially if it's on the PTR, which is what we're talking about today on episode number 26. So buckle up, grab your flasks, and get your instruments, folks, because today is going to be crazy. I'm your host, Rob May, and joining me, as always, is your ladder anxiety partner in crime, Andres Gomez. What's up, Andres?
What's up, Rob? Glad to be here, as always. Excited to talk about all the changes that are coming to the game, and also trying out something different today. The show might be a little shorter than you guys might be used to. We're really talking about the PTR, but we also want to bring you guys a interview a little later in the show. The interview will be done off air, so we won't be streaming it. But hopefully, once the episode is out for iTunes and everything, we'll tag everything together and stitch it. Stay tuned for that a little later.
So for those of you sitting on YouTube right now, that will not also be on your content creation side as well. So we'll try to get that to you in the show notes. I'll edit that on YouTube and the stream once we do get them to go live. But in the case in which our interview falls through, this will just be a short show for you. So enjoy what we do give you this week. Just a quick reminder at the top of the show, to like and comment if you are on YouTube, because it does boost us up. But let's jump into it. So this week we have a PTR massive update, and then we had a second update hit the PTR just a few days or even a day later after that. And we also have a really great blue post by designer Scott Mercer that talks about MMR in the forums, and it's really giving you a little bit more insight into the backdoor of what's going on in matchmaking. So before we do all of those things, let's start with a little ladder update on how we're doing with our skill rating and climbing. So Andres, why don't you kick us off?
Sure thing. So far for me, been still hover around the 3,000, got up to 3,200 at one point, then kind of like fell back, and I'm around there, like right around 3,000, I would say. Been playing with the team, just playing the same guys, Reaper, Lucio, and McCree. Mainly McCree and Reaper at this point. Really been enjoying those two. I think that I finally am really comfortable with both of them. I'm almost thinking about branching out a little bit because the game is getting a little repetitive for me from playing so much McCree and Reaper. And even though that's kind of like my preferred playstyle, the game does have a lot to offer. So, yeah, I think in this week I might switch it up a little bit. Maybe do a little Genji. Maybe I might do a little Junkrat and Mei. I know they've been a little popular lately.
Yeah, especially with some of the new stuff that might be rolling out. We don't know what this new hero is going to be after, maybe BlizzCon announces. We don't know which heroes are going to move in and out of the meta. So It could get real interesting with those guys. So for me, I finally climbed up a bit. I'm hovering actually higher in 2100, and I'm at 2174. I did break 2200 two different times in one sitting, but got a little greedy, stayed playing a little bit longer than maybe I should have, and dropped down 2 games at the end. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go positive. I'm going to put the game down. It's all good. But I was just happy to actually play with you for a change, Andres. I know our schedules have been nuts this last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a chance to play together.
Well, it was nice. Yeah, we had a full Omnic Lab team going on. Everyone from the Discord.
It was crazy. it was like I had 3 diamonds and a gold, and then like the other 2 people that got matched with us were almost always platinum. So I was like, all right, so I'm bringing our skill rating all the way down a little bit, and then you guys can play with a little bit easier people. But yeah, I played with Shock and Fat Cake, our 2 of our admins as well, and climbed up. I think my max was like 2240 or something like that, and then dropped pretty hard one game, and then went up again and dropped 2 more. So I ended up going 3-3 that evening, but I still feel really good about it. I mean, I was able to play Lucio with you guys, and I've said multiple times on the show I don't feel comfortable with him, but I really started hitting some kind of weird funk. I don't know. It felt really good.
No, weird funk, man. We're hitting Lucio's funk. He's a funky dude.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm starting to get that handle on switching.
Sorry, I was gonna say once you get
didn't mean to
into
cut you off.
no worries. What I was gonna say, once you get into the flow, it starts coming easy.
Yeah, it really does. Like those speed boosts are so clutch when you can do them with drop the beat and all that jazz. So it ended up being pretty good. But yeah, now I'm gonna be moving into starting to practice some more Farrah, because I've noticed that a lot of the matches when I'm playing solo or duo, usually those games are being lost because the enemy team has a Farrah that's not being dealt with. So I'm like, well, maybe in my elo, Farrah is just really hard because there's not a good realm of hit scan players. So if I can just play Farrah, maybe I can increase my win rate. So I'm gonna start
heard that before,
learning her a little bit better.
Farrah thrives a little bit in the lower ranks, since sometimes I've said this before. I think that aiming vertically is a lot harder than just aiming horizontally, and I feel like especially at the lower ranks, it's almost like people sometimes avoid aiming vertically at all costs. It's almost like once it's up in the range of vision, it's like, oh, that I can't see it anymore. It's not there. And they sometimes just keep focusing on the front line, and Farrah is just like up there, like raining chaos. But yeah, once you start getting up in the higher ranks, and some of the McCree soldiers
just get picked.
Anna start getting picked, and they know the dangers of Farrah. It's a lot more dangerous to play Farrah, yeah. Although I've seen some really good Farrahs that are incredible at dodging in the air. Like, they're so unpredictable, and they don't hover around for a long time. They're like constantly moving up and down. They're hard to hit.
They like to jump and drop. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's jump into our quick Patreon update. We got some brand new Patreons over at patreon.com/Omnic Lab. We got Freddie C, we got Nick H, we got Victor Z, and we got Mr. Dan C. What is up, you guys? Thanks so much for joining a part of the lab, doing some experiments with us financially. We appreciate the donations.
Yeah, guys, you guys
Andres,
are super
did you want to
awesome.
say anything?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Glad to have you guys over here. One quick thing before we move on, and last thing we're gonna mention about Patreon this month is changes to all of our pledges and to all of our rewards and stuff are going live and are set by the end of this week. So if you hadn't had a chance to go into Patreon and update your pledge, please go ahead and do so. For everyone else who already updated their pledge, or if you're comfortable just leaving it as is, thank you so much for your continued support. We really, really appreciate it. I think this new model that we're trying out is going to work a lot better for us moving forward. We're already excited to do it. There's some new perks, so check it out if you guys haven't done so. Yeah, thanks a lot for the continued support. You guys are super awesome.
That being said, don't forget to just check it out if you're curious as what's going on Patreon. We got all our stuff over there, lots of cool changes, and it fits us not only with what we're trying to do, with getting some money to help improve the show, but it helps you. Like, we have a new thing for Andres to do some VODs, so go check that out. For coaching, it's right up your alley. Then maybe you can consider donating at that level to get the VOD review. Let's move on to the big bad news this update. We've got general PTR October updates, and then we have a Scott Mercer interview, and then we have a bunch of hero PTR changes. So let's get into it. Here we go. So the first thing and the most notable change of just general PTR, like bug fixes and updates, is the EXP model is changing. So for those of you that really like getting a lot of those loot boxes and grinding those levels all the way up to prestige, basically hitting 100 and then getting the really fast loot boxes from 1 to 22, that's no longer a thing. So you have the fast leveling from 1 to level 13 remaining unchanged. But then after level 14, they're going to actually take the total EXP that you needed, which I can't remember what it is offhand right now. It's not really that important. Is actually going to be reduced a little. So you're going to have loot boxes overall more often after level 14. And then when you prestige, or when you hit level 100 and you're going to level 1 with the next tier or the next star, you are now going to have a constant at max experience. And max experience is now 20,000 experience points and does not reset.
That's
so,
correct.
Andres, any other follow-up stuff to this?
Yeah, I'm a little sad. I kind of like the idea of getting to 100 and then like getting those like 20 easier loot boxes. So far, I had been able to time it really well so that in every event I was about to prestige, so I could get like the extra boxes and stuff. I guess I can see why they're doing this a little more streamlined. And I guess there's really no point in making those first 20 levels easier. I don't know. Maybe people were doing it too fast and prestiging too fast. I don't know. But I guess this is the new method. So now from level 1 to 14 is gonna be super easy. From level 14 to 100 is gonna be a little easier than it is right now. And then after you prestige, it's just gonna be the regular grind forever into eternity.
The one thing I will say about this is one of the few changes that we're actually going to see on PTR that will most likely get shipped to live servers. Most of these changes, like PTR had said, then a lot of tweet updates from Overwatch, that the PTR from now on is going to be receiving a lot more adventurous, quote unquote, changes. So we actually might see more things on the server of the public test realm that don't ever make it to live. This has been pretty rare since closed beta. Basically, when the game shipped live and they started doing PTR, most of the changes have really been like mostly tested. This is probably what's going to go live, and there's only been a handful of things that haven't made it.
Yeah, most of the PTR stuff has been pretty conservative in that sense, where what they put there is probably what is gonna go live. They just want to test it with a larger pool of people before they make the final choice, just to make sure they can make some tweaks and stuff. Since the play level of the general population is so diverse, you have to test it with these things. But with this new PTR, they're doing really aggressive changes, and it's interesting because it's almost like they're using it as a little experimentation grounds where they can make really aggressive changes to these heroes, but they're not necessarily meant to go live. They just want to see what happens if they make this kind of change.
They're not final product.
Exactly. So usually they don't do this a lot. A lot of game developers kind of shy away from this sort of thing because they don't want to give their community the wrong impression. Although Blizzard's being very open, and they're doing the disclaimer saying, hey, these changes are not intended to go live as they are. We're just gonna get a little wild here for a second. Come hang out if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not really much to say about the EXP thing. It's kind of like it would be nice if they left it the way it is. But I think all in all, it's going to feel better in the long run. Instead of like hitting the grind and like trying to hit 100 and then get this big boost for like 10, 20 boxes. Now it's just going to be like, it's a little bit easier every level for all of eternity to get your boxes instead. So it almost evens out in the long run. It just feels consistent. So then now let's talk real quick before we get into the stuff with the hero changes for PTR. We have the real wild stuff. We got Scott Mercer interview about, or blue post on what's the deal with MMR. So a couple highlights of this post. We'll link it in the show notes for you to read the full thing, but our admins have been on top of giving us some extra news on the blue post. But we'll just read a couple things and have Andres comment, and maybe I'll do a couple follow-ups, maybe play devil's advocate. But it won't take too long. Basically, Scott Mercer's saying that they need to do a better job of not placing players into quote unquote unwinnable matches.
Yeah.
Still feels like there are some outliers, but he said that for the vast majority, quote unquote, these unwinnable, you know, air quotes matches are fairly rare, but they do happen, and that makes them a little crazy when it does. Like, they raise their eyebrows to this.
Yeah. Before we go like super and deep into the article, we should maybe talk about a little bit like why he decided to do this post. This was a really long
Yeah.
thread in the Battle.net forums where people were arguing about how you actual MMR gets assigned to you, how you gain SR, how you lose it, all this stuff. And like for the longest time, it's all been speculation, right? Like we haven't known for sure that there's other factors that influence how you gain SR, but there was a lot of evidence pointing towards it. That it was just not like, hey, if you win or lose, you gain this much amount, but like how you play during the game, the character that you play, all this also influences how you win or lose SR. So a lot of people were saying that because of all these crazy rules, SR is very inconsistent and is very hard to climb sometimes. And sometimes it's so random how you lose SR or how you gain SR. Like in one game, you'll lose 40 and then you'll gain like 18. But then on the next one, you'll gain 36, but then lose 20. This sort of thing. So Scott Mercer decided to shine a little light on the subject and finally tell us, hey guys, there are some stuff that is going on our end that affects it a little bit. And we also see all the statistics, and some of them are not as bad as you think. Some of them do. There is a problem, but if there is a problem, here is why. And here's what we want to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so the unwinnable thing, I do feel like it does happen, but I do agree with Scott here from personal experience of playing, hours and hours of the game. The unwinnable matches are starting to feel like they're thinning out the more I play, which goes into more of his points later on in the article, saying like the best way to avoid a lot of this stuff is to play Overwatch a lot in competitive, and not just play a lot, but play a lot fairly regularly. So like if you don't play for, a couple weeks and then you jump in, it like gets more inconsistent with how your matches get matched, because just like any sport, you get rusty on your couple matches, so it feels worse, right?
Yeah.
And then they have another point here that says there is not always a perfect match for you, especially at very high and very low skill rankings where there are fewer players of the similar skill rating. So that has to do with the bell curve, right? So the most populated area of players is going to be the area in the middle where most of the average is, right?
Yeah. I think the main takeaway from here is sometimes, very rarely, on some very extreme cases, the matchmaker will place you in a match where you actually can't win. Like the other team is outright just better than you and you get stumped. But this is so rare. Like an example of this, and this is just from personal experience. With other people, it might be a little different. But I played a scrim this week with people that had an average SR of like 3,700. It was like, or 3,600. It was pretty ridiculous. They were like almost all master except for like one guy or something like that. And we found the scrim online. And at first we were kind of like a little doubtful because, or the average SR of our team is more like on the 2,700. So almost 1,000 SR less than them. And we're like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea. But I was like, let's just do it just to see how it feels, right? Like, how do we compare to them? We play the scrim, and trust me, that was an unwinnable match. At least for our skill level, like we were not gonna win the match, both on defense and offense. It was just like so noticeable that we were in different leagues, at least as a team, the way they were moving, how they would kill people, how they would target them, how fast they would capture their objective versus us, which wouldn't even get close to like finishing the map sometimes. So, and I don't know, it's been at least I don't think I've ever felt this in the actual competitive mode. Maybe one or two times when it was like just starting out and when I was in my placement matches,
Yeah.
I kind of felt that. But like nowadays, never, I would say, I go into a game where like I feel that I have zero chance against the enemy team.
Yeah. I would agree to
Um,
that. I feel like those unwinnable matches are getting very few and far between the longer I've been playing.
Yeah, and then there's also like this way of thinking that got me thinking too what he says, that there's not always the perfect match for you, right? And this makes perfect sense. We're playing against other people and we have no control of when those people play, right? Like it is because it's real life, there will be patches of time where everyone who's around your play level will be playing with you. But then sometimes you'll be playing at like 3 a.m. in the morning and the people who are around are just at different levels than you are, and like Blizzard has no control over that unless they start creating amazing AIs that simulate human beings in every sense of the way. But I think we're
Yeah.
a little bit away from that.
Yeah. And we don't really need to beat a dead horse in that one. It's just kind of how the bell curve works. Like the lower you are, the higher you are, the more unperfect the matchmaking is going to be because of you're not playing at peak times or common times where those people in your tier are playing. Then that's just how it works. And then we have he says, when we do put you in a match that we know isn't a 50-50, we are going to adjust your SR gain and loss based on the calculated change of winning. So if you didn't get placed in a match with only a 20% chance to win and then you lose, you shouldn't lose much, skill rating. And this is what they said from the outset of the thing. So this is no shocker here.
Yeah, that one we
But then
knew.
he goes on to say grouping MMR. So based off of the data they've seen in groups of low and mid skill rating players, they do not see much of an improvement on their win percentage when they're grouped versus not grouped. So this was very surprising to me.
I think once you think about it, it's not as surprising because sometimes even when you group at lower SR ratings, the group itself, it's just not aware of how to take the most advantage of the grouping, right? Like I've noticed even at low SR, people will group together, but then they'll still not move together, or sometimes they'll still not coordinate some ultimates together. Sometimes even the communication between the lower SR groups is not as efficient. Like when you listen to some of the best communications in the game, they're very short, they're very concise, and they give you a lot of information with at the least like words possible. And also, there's not a lot of voice clutter, right? There's not a lot of people just narrating their game or talking about some other
Or
random
whining.
stuff or whining or complaining. Yeah, exactly. Which
That's
does
most
happen
of what the
in comms at lower
voices.
ranks. Yeah, once you group at lower ranks, like sometimes people just talk to talk, and it's cool. You know what I mean? Like they're playing the game a little more carefree, a little more casually, and that's the difference between playing like super hardcore efficient in a group where everything you're trying to do is based on the win, and just playing with your friends for fun.
Yeah, because like when I was playing with you and Matt and Shock, like we just ran in there, and like granted, Matt never uses this mic in the first place, but like when we weren't goofing around and when we weren't like smashing somebody on a big attack, it was like focus mode. We didn't say anything. It was more like there's a Reaper on me, or kill the Mercy. That was like basically it. Like there wasn't much voice clutter at all. It was mostly like the extra people saying like nano me or heal me,
So
something like that.
I guess that would be kind of my extrapolation of that data of why like grouping at lower SR tends to be less impactful than grouping at higher SRs.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get the last 2 points here. It says the more certain the matchmaker is about your MMR, the less your MMR, which for those of you that are lost as to what MMR stands for, MMR is matchmaking rating. So the less your MMR will change in either direction of like positive or negative. for wins and losses. So basically, when it gets to be more certain, then the less your change is going to be. But as a minor factor, they evaluate how well you play. So the big key is minor. So as minor factors is how well you play in the match. This is a comparison is largely based on historical data of people playing specific heroes, not medals, not pure damage done. So quit whining and complaining about getting gold damage and saying I should blah 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 blah. Okay, so like they're saying they're doing a lot of work on this system to make sure it's based off of that community feedback that they received. So that being said, like I really like that they're allowing us to be rated a little bit heavier or lighter depending on our performance, but I'm more excited that they're rating us not only on that as a minor factor, but they're rating us on that scale when it doesn't relate to, you know, gold healing or silver healing or, you know, whatever the metal color is or the total specific number. It's more of like the impact during the game that you're having.
Yeah. To me, it seems like this is a system that a lot of work is being put into. I think it's not a conventional system like we're used to, more like raw stats, like, hey, I win and you lose, we gain this much, you lose this much, let's move on kind of system.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more black and white. They're trying to do, I guess, a more comprehensive system that takes into account a lot of the variables, a lot of the nuances of, I guess, real life. And it's really hard, right? And such a system is bound to make mistakes here and there until they can really like perfect like certain algorithm, I guess, inside of it. One thing that you kind of skim through that I just want to mention is that you said the matchmaker, or he said that the matchmaker gets certain about your MMR the more games you play. And I have noticed this, and this actually does explain win streaks sometimes in this game. If you play a lot of matches, let's say 50 matches, and you remain around the same SR, the matchmaker is gonna start becoming more certain that that's kind of like the SR that you belong to, and will give you a net gain or loss that is less like from a match. And I think some people have experienced this, and this might be the reason why you were thinking, hey, playing with the same hero over and over and over again gives me less SR than if I kind of like switch it up a little bit. Just like thinking about it, if you win, let's say 5 games in a row, the matchmaker starts getting a little less certain of where you are. And at that point, it might award you more points per win, because at that point he's thinking, or it is thinking, hey, this guy maybe belongs to a higher SR than I initially
Gonna
thought.
compensate.
So I'm gonna loosen up a little bit, give him more SR that he climbs a little bit. And once you start getting to that plateau again, then I guess your SR gain and loss will normalize a little more, and you will gain and less a little more, just to kind of explain that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we covered that pretty well. I would just want to actually move on more than anything. So if you have more comments, feel free to drop us a line at our email, omniclabpodcast@gmail.com, or you can shoot us some Discord messages in our Discord server. But let's get into the main, like, big bulk of these PTR changes about the heroes. So the biggest and most significant, I guess, jarring thing that they're testing on PTR is that ultimate charges are now increased by 25%. So your ultimates are charging slower by 25%, which is bananas.
I am a total fan of this. I think that right now ultimates are super, super important in Overwatch, to the point where, and they charge fast enough to the point where you can actually just wait to engage almost every fight for your ultimates. You don't have to like commit without them. And it's getting to this point where every match is kind of like a standoff between both teams until somebody gets their ultimate and they can push through. And that's cool and everything. But at the end of the day, like, this is also a shooter, and like just playing the game and actually getting kills, but just by shooting people, disrupting the backline, like movement, this sort of thing. It's really cool and interesting, and it's what actually makes some of the best plays. Sometimes just like throwing 2 or 3 ultimates at the enemy team and creating a cluster fuck of everything and just kind of like destroying everything. It can be a little less exciting in a sense, you know what I mean? Because, for example, when Reaper gets Nanoblade and he has Death Blossom, pro teams at this point, they don't even try to counter the strategy. They're just like,
run.
he has Nano Death Blossom, just die. Just go ahead and wipe. We'll get him on the next try. It's almost like, I don't know.
It's just like a soft reset.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of strategy to counter it or to play around it. It's more like, oh, once they have it, they have it. Okay, we'll all die. Work around it. Let's try again. And I don't know, that to me is a little too much emphasis on ultimates, and maybe a change like this serves to de-emphasize the importance of them. That's my take on it.
I just like this because for me, I took it with a different route, but I would agree with everything you said, Andres. I like how the ultimates are receiving more time that you have to gain them, because then this means that you're going to be rewarded more for consistent damage over time as a DPS player, or consistent role healing or blocking, whatever you're doing in your role is going to be more it sounds like it's less rewarding, but it's basically more consistently rewarding than it is like burst rewarding. So like if some moron's taking a crap ton of damage because my Reinhardt doesn't know how to keep his shield up and I'm playing Ana, I'm just like smacking the butt of him with my biotic rifle trying to get this guy healed so I can get my ultimate, right? But in this one, it's more, I'm going to get more rewarded for healing more targets over time or healing my Reinhardt longer. And then on top of this, I feel like the ultimate charge increasing means that the first people to get the ultimates are going to be more willing to stagger them and utilize them evenly across the team when they are more valuable. You don't want to burn like, you don't want to do what they did with, Beyblade and then also happen to throw in like drop the beat for, Lucio or a Zenyatta ult. So you're not burning 3 ults at once. You're burning maybe like 2.
Yeah,
they're more valuable.
Yeah, ultimates become more valuable, and therefore you have to be more picky on when you decide to use them, which I am okay with. Like an example of,
you can hold on to them longer too.
Yeah, an example of an ultimate that was way too out of hand with this was McCree's ult before it got its nerf.
Yeah, where
you would retain 50% of the charge, even if you didn't fire it or if you cancel it mid go. And this was too much because you could use his ultimate basically almost every fight, even if you didn't fire it, and it was one of the most insane zoning tools because the enemy team couldn't fight in front of your team while they pushed the payload or they defended the point. And it was just too much, and it had to receive a nerf because having this insane ability every fight is not how we should be playing this game, I think.
Right.
Cool.
All right, so that's a good chunk. We got another one that's kind of a minor change. Basically, to go along with this, they're also going to reduce the amount of ultimate charge you get by saying that if you kill something or damage something that is not a hero, that will not give you ultimate charge anymore. So that is sentries and teleporters for Symmetra and turrets from Torbjorn. Those are not giving you any ulti charge. They're just functionally a good idea to do so that your team doesn't die. Okay? All right, so that's like another thing to kind of show you that the ultimate charge is also going to be increased even further on that aspect, even though it is uncommon. Then we have Diva's changes. These are my favorite changes of the patch besides the Mercy changes. Okay, so Mercy mains rejoice, we'll get there, but Diva's changes are my most excited ones. So the mech HP is now 200. So Diva now has 600 health like Roadhog, 200 health and 400 armor, and her firings, like her move speed reduction, is now up. So not up as in she's moved slower while firing, but when she's firing her rifles or pulse guns, she now is faster by 25%. And I was watching some highlights of people on PTR with this change, and she looks ridiculously fast now. It's like when they did the changes for Hanzo with moving around at like a faster rate of speed when your bow's pulled back. It feels awesome.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. These changes specifically kind of scare me a little bit.
They
This
made
seems
me
like a
way
lot.
too excited. Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to play test with Diva. I think this might be a change to kind of
It's
like allow her
bananas.
to compete more in the front line, because right now, especially with the triple tank meta, like Diva just gets destroyed, right? Like once you put a
Yeah,
Zarya
she
and
gets
sometimes a
eaten.
Roadhog and even a Reinhardt in front of her is just like those melee hits. Plus, she cannot block the beam from Zarya, and she cannot block the hook from Roadhog, and she has a
Yeah.
huge frame. So these heroes just eat her alive. But I'm talking about just the tank heroes. Like tank heroes destroy her. But once you put Diva against like some of the rest of the people, like these changes
She's
are
scary.
scary. Yeah. Like as a person
Like
that plays
Reaper is gonna have
McCree.
a really hard time.
Yeah. Or like I was thinking McCree. Like there's nothing more annoying
Oh my
already
gosh.
than a good Diva sometimes when you're playing McCree. Like the Matrix and the way she can just fly to you wherever you are. Makes her really annoying. Plus, you cannot really burst her down already like too effectively. It takes you like sometimes 3 or 4 fan the hammers to get her out. And if she's just on
Jeez.
you, she'll just like eat you alive.
Dang. And then
So
they
I don't know.
also adjusted her call mech, which is kind of a minor thing. Basically, they made the ultimate cost of calling the mech back when you're in pilot form lowered by 20%. But this is basically just offsetting costs of the ultimate changes that they already put in place in the general area. So you can get the mech at a normal rate that it was before.
Makes sense.
All right. And then we have these soldier changes. These are bonkers. So soldiers' regular fire damage is increased to 20 per shot instead of 17. That means headshots are doing 40 damage a round. And then the max bullet spread, so like the area by which like when you hold down the rounds is increased to 2.4 instead of 2.2. So this is slightly minor, maybe to offset a little bit of the damage, but man, if you're playing soldier right, this is absolutely nuts. I feel like he's going to actually be able to compete against good McCrees at kind of the upper echelon of damage just because of that much of a boost on each shot, especially if you're hitting like 2-3 headshots.
He definitely hits a little harder now. I really want to like actually see how he feels like. Right now, I
Mm-hmm.
would love if Soldier was like an extended McCree. Like McCree is really, really good at medium to short range, but once you get into like that longer range, he really starts falling off hard, and
Yeah.
he's not as effective at that range. And I would love to have a hero that was really effective at that range, like Soldier. Just would fit that role
Yeah.
so good. Like not as far as you would play with like Zenyatta or Widow sometimes, but
Yeah.
enough that you can like have long range battles a little easier. Like to
I
be
really
able.
want to see what the effect is of the fall off damage, because like the fall off damage is still there, but increasing the total amount before the fall off damage is factored might be enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. If it's just a little more than McCree, I think it would be good.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, so let's move on. We got Anna. This is a big change. It sounds minor, but it is a big change. So Nano Boost no longer grants the movement speed increase.
Oh, that's good. I think that might be enough to not make it like that insane. Because right now, it just makes heroes that shouldn't move that fast, like Reinhardt or Reaper.
Yeah, the movement speed increases 30%. So this is like basically Lucio boost, right? Only
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to look it up actually. Lucio speed boost. I'm pretty sure the speed boost is more when he does the amp it up, but like the static speed increase is probably the same. Yeah, so the static crossfade to speed is 30%, and the amp it up pushes it to 70. So if you have Lucio plus the Nano right now, it goes up to 60. And then if you have the amp it up for that 3 seconds and the Nano boost, You got Reapers moving at, plus 90% or plus 100% speed. That's
Like nobody can
bonkers.
outrun that. You know what I mean? He's running at double speed
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. And there's only a very slight move speed reduction when he does his ult. So I think this is interesting to me. I would actually like to see a little bit of speed. I think that I like the 10% on this, but I don't like a 0%. But that's just because I really enjoy playing Ana. So for what it's worth.
No, I could
Let's
see
move on.
that if it was a moderate amount of speed, just like a slight little increase so that they
Mhm.
become a little more mobile. But right now, I feel like it's too much. Like you can catch up to anyone with the speed boost
Like
that you
30
get right
is nuts with Genji, especially. Like Genji and Reaper just feels freaking scary. But like 10% feels okay. And then we have Mei, which this is interesting. So her ultimate charge is now increased the cost by 15%. So Mei plus the regular change on PTR is now a 40% increase on how frequently she's going to have Blizzard.
Good. Her ultimate is really good right now. It's
Is
with the
so
extended
busted.
range, yeah, and the being able to go through shields. It's just really good. I agree with making it a little more sparse.
Like, even if they revert the ultimate charges back to what they are on current live, I think this change needs to hit the live servers before the ultimate charge total increase for all heroes. Because, like, Mei feels so busted right now. Like, you just can ult every freaking fight. It's so annoying.
Yeah, there's a lot of ults coming out from her. I agree. This might be a little sluggish for her ult. Like, this might be like a super over nerf to the time. But like we said, these are a little more aggressive changes just to see how it pans out. But I do agree, increasing the ultimate time for her is a must right now.
Yeah, she can just use her ult way too often right now. Then we have Lucio, another minor change. So this one is basically Lucio's healing per second when he uses the amp it up. So the E ability on keyboard for the boost is now down 10%, which I feel like
interesting change. Like
is interesting.
I never felt like amp it up was too much. Maybe the raw stats show that is just 10% off. 10% is not a lot. I don't think it's gonna be like hugely noticeable. It might be like some fine tuning that they want to do against like other damaging abilities, like whether they want the amp it up to out heal certain abilities or not. This to me, I don't know if it's gonna be like super impactful on Lucio play. At 10% is it's hard to tell because how much does amp it up heal per second?
So right now, Amp It Up does 40 health per second.
And
so if you take out 10%, it's 4. It lasts for 3 seconds. So basically, instead of doing over the full duration, 40 times 3. Sorry, 40 times 3, my calculator screwed up. Is on 120. So you heal 120 over 3 seconds.
You're taking 12 health out of the equation.
So 106.
Yeah, exactly.
This is very, very minor.
Very minor. And I think it's more of an overall thing, like the overall added or cumulative effect of, healing, amp it up your whole team, maybe like toning down like this. Or like I said, it might be like a fine tuning to make it so you cannot out heal a certain ability. And now maybe this ability actually deals 1 more damage than amp it up. That kind of sort of fine tuning is my guess for this change.
Another interesting factor for this change that I was thinking about as you're talking about that, Andres, is like when Lucio gets ultimate charge, he doesn't get ultimate charge just from shooting things, but also from healing things. So the total number of the healing might actually just be a reduction on how frequently you can get the sound barriers off.
Yeah, there you go.
That could also be a small byproduct.
Yeah.
So we don't know. Go test it out on the PTR, guys. Well, this is a very strange change that I'm very interested to see how it pans out, but we need a lot more testing for us to figure out what's going on with this one. Then we got Zarya. This is a pretty crazy change, I have to say. So basically, when Zarya uses her barriers from now on, the charge is down 20% of how much energy you gain. So basically, if you take enough damage, I can't remember the exact like raw data. It's not as important, but basically if you take enough damage you can max out how much charge you get per barrier at 50 charge. So if you shield your ally, shield yourself, take the full damage, you get 50 charge. Now it's decreased by 20%, which is 10 charge. So you can go at max out at 80 off of 2 barriers. So this is going to make your disciplined play on Zarya to max out the amount of charge that you have to modify your damage a lot more challenging to stay at 100 or like plus 80. And overall, I think this is going to reduce her max damage down quite a bit.
I love this change. I think they use really weird words to basically just say that it's going to take you at least 3 shields to get max charge. Right now, if you take full damage with one of your shields, you get up to 50% charge, which means with 2 shields that get popped, you are 100% charge and dealing insane amount of damage. With this change, it just means that, yeah, you're going to have to be a little better at your energy management. It's going to take a little more shields to get you up to the max. And I totally agree with this change. I think that sometimes Zarya is just too easy to get charged up really quick, especially when the team is not paying attention, just kind of spamming everywhere into the shields. And then she becomes this insane DPS where she can just like stand in the front line and she just eats everyone who's in front of her alive, especially if you can keep your beam locked into them.
Yep, I agree. I think Zarya's damage did need to be toned down, and this is a very interesting way to do it because now they're making the skill ceiling higher and reducing the damage to a little bit overall, but they're reducing the damage overall a lot for players that don't have a lot of experience or a lot of mastery on this hero. So I like how they're approaching the change of reducing the damage for Zarya here. Then we have Torbjorn. This is more of a kind of like a rework on his kit slightly when you deal with Torb and Scrap. So Scrap now generates over time as an auto generation, and they reduce the total amount of scrap that you can get off of enemies because of this by 40%. So then they also flipped it around and said that Torbjorn's hammer swing attacks or builds 25% faster, and the hammer damage is lowered by 27%. So overall, the damage is going to be evened out on how much the hammer can do, but rather they're making this so that you can repair or build up a level 2 turret faster, in addition to the scrap changes. Andres, what do you think about these changes? I don't play Torb like ever, so I don't know how this is going to really impact the game at all.
I've played a little Torb. One thing I can say is that he is non-existent in the meta right now. If you go like platinum and above, you almost never see him, and if you see him, it's just like some troll guy trying to do some weird thing with him.
Yeah,
I think that all of these changes are targeted to, getting Torb a little back into the meta, at least, I don't know, in the higher meta, I think. Being able to construct the turret a little faster, and especially generating scrap. I think that one of the worst things...
That's the best part of Torb's kit.
Yeah, one of the best parts about Torb is that he can give extra padding to your team, and that extra padding can actually be quite significant. I remember that back in the closed beta, Symmetra and Torbjorn were super popular on defense, and having everyone with that extra 50 health shield and that armor scrap was pretty insane and significant. Yeah, everyone was doing that back then. But
everyone
right now,
a tank.
It's really hard to collect scrap, especially when you're only getting it from kills of the enemy team, right?
Right. Yeah, so I really like this change, and not only is Torbjorn's scrap turning into armor for your allies, like to get health, like a flat shield from Symmetra, but this is also a damage reducer. So remember, when you look at armor has a flat, like, it's going to half the damage if it's above a certain level and threshold, and it's going to cut down the total damage by no more than 5 per shot. So it's pretty crazy. If Torb really comes back into the meta, I think it's going to have to deal with how much scrap he has, and then how much damage he can realistically do over time with both his own gun and the gun of his turret.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have some Widow damage changes. So the mine no longer, I guess, can damage Widow herself when it explodes and you're nearby, which I didn't actually know this was a thing until I read this change. So that's good. No longer you can take some venom charge.
Really?
You are now immune to your own venom.
You didn't know you could damage yourself?
No, I didn't have any idea. I was never close enough to my mine.
I
So
guess you don't play that much Widow either. But this has happened
yeah,
to
I
me
never
before
play Widow.
because I use my mine a lot, especially when people are close to me. Like I'll try to kite them around a corner and then I'll place my mine. But then there comes those eventual times where you miss your placement or you place the mine and immediately Genji dashes at you and explodes the mine right then and there. And then you get mined too and you get poisoned. And it's like the worst thing ever because you get punished for trying to be clever, I guess, or for using your own tools to kind of like try to get away. Because her grapple shot and her mine are her tools to get away, right? One slows and the other one changes your position. But placing the mine near you sometimes is like a huge liability.
A liability.
Yeah, and it sucks that you can't use it as a getaway mechanic because of that. Sometimes.
It really sucks.
Yeah, so
no wonder I hate Widow.
I agree with this change, and what I agree with even more is the speed increase to her charge. So basically, when you scope, the time it takes for your scope to get 100% charge, so you do full damage, is gonna be reduced by 20%. And I wholeheartedly approve with this change. Because from my experience of playing Widow, and I've played a fair bit of Widow, she's kind of like my second most played in quick play for some reason or something like that. But when I'm playing her and I aim with her, I find myself usually landing the shot when I do like almost like a quick scope after I aim in, right? Like you're almost like tracking.
Yeah, you pull the scope up and then you shoot them.
Yeah, you're tracking the person without the scope. And then once you pull the scope in, sometimes the amount of time it takes for you to be like, here's where I have my clear chance. And the amount that the scope actually takes to reach 100 is just a little bit delayed. So it's almost like you miss the chance. You get the hit in, but you just don't do enough damage,
the max damage,
to make it significant. And then at that point it actually kind of hurts you because you dealt a good chunk of damage that is just gonna get healed. They get ulti charge and you couldn't capitalize on much right there,
and you gave away your position.
Yeah, or even when like people are like a little low and you just need to kind of like poke him a little bit. I feel like she doesn't have just enough poking oomph, you know what I mean? Like she just
you get just that extra little bit to finish him off.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a fan of this change. I like it.
We have some other strange changes to Farrah. I think I kind of know how this works, so I wrote down something in this, but feel free to correct me, Andres, on what you think about these changes. But basically, rockets have a explosion maximum damage and maximum knockback, and a minimum explosion and a minimum knockback for how they affect players. So this is in relationship to the radius because you have like direct rocket hits that hit the target. And then if you hit the ground around, there's like splash damage. So basically the minimum, like at the very edge of the radius of the splash damage, the rocket's total damage is increased to 25% of the max damage. So you're taking 1/4 of the max damage of the rocket when you're at its edge, and it used to be 12. And then when you can get knocked back from the rockets, you used to be able to get about 75% of the knockback. You would actually still get hit by if the rocket hit you at all. And now at the edge of the of the explosion, it's down to 0. So essentially, they're making Farrah more about damaging and less about the knockback effect with what the rockets do. So there's some sort of like fall off mechanic in there with the center of the rocket and the edge.
Yeah, here's my interpretation. They want to make direct hits more important right now. I feel like maybe they're thinking that Farrah is getting too many kills by collateral damage around her rocket rather than like being able to track and predict the movement of your target and hit them with the rocket in their face. You know what I mean? Um, they're reducing the damage that is done on the outside of the explosion, basically. So if you're further away from the center of the hit, you're gonna take less damage. Also, if you're further away from the center of the hit, you're not gonna get knocked back anymore. Like before, you know how Farrah's rockets have like this light knockback, and sometimes they can actually knock you back like quite far. It's almost like Zarya's grenades, and we're not talking about her E. We're just talking about her like basic attack. When you get hit, it knocks you back a little bit. They're reducing how much you can knock back when you're on the outside of the explosion, because sometimes this can be really annoying for positioning or from while trying to get away from her. Like you're running for cover into a building and she fires at you, doesn't really hit you, but the knockback is enough to push you to the edge of the door where you have to like kind of like come back before you go inside of the door, and she manages to get another rocket hit on you, and that is one of the most frustrating things that there can be. um but yeah, that's my take. They want to make direct hits more important for her, and the damage around the rocket a little less significant, so she just gets less kills or less random kills from, you know, just damage around it.
See, I didn't read it that way because it says minimum explosion damage increased. So like the lowest number of damage you're doing at the very edge of the rocket, that damage is now higher.
Oh, I didn't see the increase. I was looking at the minimum explosion knockback. So they reduced the knockback, increased the damage.
Yeah, increased damage, reduce knockback.
Interesting.
So like when you're shooting someone, now at the edge of the damage, you're taking double what you used to, but it's still only a quarter of what the total would be if you were hitting them with a direct rocket.
Oh, interesting. I had totally read this wrong then. It's the opposite. They're trying to get rockets to do more splash.
Doing damage with the rockets instead of using them for, you know, moving somebody as a target around with the knockback.
So no more knockback on the edges, but it hits a little harder. Interesting. So you trade the knockback for damage, I guess?
Damage. Yeah. So I guess they're testing this out. I will be very interested to see how this works.
I'll reserve my opinion on this one then, because it's not what I thought it was.
All right. And then the last change, which is obviously the best change because it has to do with Mercy. This is actually, I think this change is probably busted, but we'll see. Mercy's passive, which is I think it's something to do with Guardian Angel. Basically, her health regenerates after not taking damage for a certain amount of time, which used to be after 3 seconds, her health would start regenerating a little slower than a shield at a set rate. But right now, this change has changed Mercy to if she's not taking damage for 1 second, 1 second, she starts healing. This is freaking stupid strong.
All I'm going to say is high-level players are probably like, oh, thank God. And level players are going to be like, what?
I can live forever.
I like basically like diamond and below mercies are never gonna die, or maybe I'm exaggerating, but like sometimes mercies are already hard to kill because those teams are not necessarily like looking for the mercy, and when the mercies are smart and they hide, it's almost like they just get completely
or they're
ignored.
Flying around with a Farrah in
when
gold, where there's McCrees that can't shoot you.
that was the other thing I was gonna say. Once you start flying around with the Farrah and people cannot shoot at you constantly, and you're not only healing Farrah, but you're healing yourself constantly, like that's gonna be a nightmare for those people. For higher play though, that's good news because at higher play you always have like the diving Genji plus Winston. And unfortunately, since you're taking Mercy, you are like half of the heals on your team. And when they're focusing you, sometimes your other healer, which is like a Zenyatta or Lucio, especially if he's amped up, is in cooldown, just don't have enough to like pull you up. You know what I mean? You're just dead. And even if you manage to run away to somebody else, you just don't have any time to recoup before they dive on you again. So yeah, that's
I
kind of my
agree.
take on this change.
When I play with better players like you guys and I was playing Mercy, I was like, I am just dying so fast. I can't heal fast enough. And like the heal itself isn't a significant heal. Like we said, it actually, if out of combat, you're not taking damage for 1 second, you have a very slow, like charging heal, similar to the shields, but it's actually slower than the shield's rate.
Yeah.
But the fact that that activates sooner means that you can heal for 2 full seconds if you're not taking damage, which I think is great for, mercies that can zoom around. So I'm really excited to see what this looks like and how it generates stuff, because if they're nerfing amp it up damage and ultimate charge for all of the heroes, that means that not only is Mercy going to be even worse with like not being able to resurrect people as often, but it looks like they're nerfing the total like stuff for Lucio's amp it up and Anna's ultimate, and they haven't touched Zenyatta. So I feel like Mercy Zenyatta is going to be the way to go, at least in the PTR, to test that combination out.
Yeah, we'll see how it
You know
goes.
what I mean?
Mercy seems like, I don't know, she's a hard hero to balance because it's easy to make her too much and it's easy to make her not relevant enough.
Yep, I agree. All right, so this is the portion where if you're on audio, you will be now listening to a really great interview with our emailed console player. You'll hear more about that here in a second from Andres. And if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching live with us here, you can finish up the show with some iTunes reviews. So here we go. Let's get into some iTunes reviews from BRIP2K4 from USA. Says, great podcast and great community. All up to date on information and strats you'll ever need to succeed in Overwatch. Would like to see more formalized and clearly divided sections of the podcast, like state of the meta or patch notes or deep dives, etc. Maybe some bumper sounds and samples or music pieces in between sections to enhance the organization of the podcast. Still great, and I look forward to it every week. Those are some great ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I've been giving a lot of thought into this. We used to do a couple of bumpers. I kind of wanted to do something a little more original since we were just using the some of the Overwatch stock music. Yeah. I'm working on some stuff with somebody right now. I can't reveal too much of it. I can't promise it's coming anytime soon, but there are some stuff in the works with regard of all this stuff. As far as the organization of the podcast, I agree with you, Brip. Like I said, I've been giving a lot of head to the stuff, and I think we do want to improve some stuff in adding bumpers, the more formalized kind of like organization of the podcast. It's also been a work in progress too, since Rob and me kind of started the podcast with the idea of doing a strategy segment and stuff, but it's been kind of like an iteration process. Since we started the show, we've gotten a lot of feedback. We've also seen what you guys actually like hearing from us, what you guys are not so thrilled about. So the more we do the podcast, the more we can narrow it down to like the format that we just want to continue going forward. But without me rambling on, yes, we are thinking about all those things too. Thank you.
And we're always thinking about this. We realize we're finally past the 25 episode mark, which marks a half of a year. So we finally hit our 6-month block. So we're actually really willing to start kind of shaking things up a little bit more than we normally would and try to get to progression mindset. That's why we're redoing Patreon, redoing, some of the graphics if we get to a certain Patreon level, kind of jumping into being more involved in Discord and our community, etc. And then, Andres, why don't you read another iTunes review from Will's I Touch?
Sounds good. He says, great podcast. Love the show. Been listening for about 2 months. Just wish you all would do more console stuff, more console talk. Mode stuff kind of transfers over, but some strategies are different for console. Still the best Overwatch podcast I've heard. Keep up the good work. Well, good news for you, Will, because we are working on exactly that. And hopefully, there will be a console interview that is coming out with this podcast. We'll keep you all updated on that. But I can guarantee that if it doesn't come out with this podcast, it will come out shortly after. And yes, you are not the only one who's interested in console. So we got you guys. We got you.
Mhm. And if you are still wanting more console people to play with, please go over to the Discord. We're having people constantly in there asking for more people to play. And the more people that show up to look for players and the more different times, the more frequent you can find somebody to group with. We got a great PC community right now, and we got a couple PC players that have switched from console. But don't feel pressured. Stay strong, console players. You can still enjoy your medium. Trust me. And then we have our last review from Jelly Mammal, which is a great name for an Australian review. Says, great podcast, really great. I've been listening for a few weeks now, and it's one of the highlights of my week. It's easy to follow and very informative. The producers are very much in contact with the community and is all around a great place to go learn for veterans and new players alike. Thanks so much for your guys' reviews this week. It means a lot to hear so much positive feedback on such a consistent basis. It's sometimes even a little mysterious that the show has gotten so much positive feedback. Like Andres and I were talking about this in the pre-show today, that we're like, our community keeps growing, and Patreon and Discord, and it makes me nervous. Like, when is the floodgates gonna just like close up shop, and that's like what we're stuck with, or when are people just gonna like peace out? So we're kind of like, I think we're doing something that's good, but we're still skeptical. It's like something we're not used to.
Yeah, for sure. This has been one of the most successful podcasts that I've been a part of. And it's been a little bit overwhelming too, because when we started the podcast, I didn't expect this much response from all of you guys. And it makes us really happy that, our effort and the stuff that we're producing is actually getting to someone's ears, and they're actually enjoying and taking something for it, learning about the game with us. The guys of you guys who have joined the Discord and have become part of our community, all the people that have written to the show in emails or reviews, like all that like compounds, and it makes it stronger. It makes us want to work on the show even more, keep bringing you guys some more cool, awesome content. We're very excited to hopefully start bringing you guys some more interviews with some more people from the community, maybe some pro players. We're still on the lookout for people who are part of the pro scene who might be interested in having a forum where they can speak to some of their strategies, help the community grow, and make everyone better. We're all in for that. So thank you guys so much, and thank you for always tuning into the show. Super grateful. Thanks.
Absolutely. And if you guys are sticking around just a little later, be sure to check out our helpful link of the week on how to build a dive composition. I felt was a very well executed video by Your Overwatch. So I put a little link in the description if you're interested in how to build and construct, or even move past the paperwork and try to watch somebody play at least once and try to like maneuver how to complement your team with building a few pieces of the dive comp to complement your team comp. It's very interesting. Basically like Genji and Winston or Zarya, some other tracer play. Yeah, it's really cool. But that's it for episode number 26, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, if we got that interview in, I hope you enjoyed it. If we didn't get it in, we'll get it to you soon. We got the interest is there, which is the scheduling conflict of interest if we didn't get it in this week. So we're really hoping that we can get that console stuff for you. We try to do our best to make sure this show is relevant for everyone. That's why we try to make sure that even if we mention PC as the master race, it's only meant in jest and not in content. All right, so if you guys are looking for Omnic Lab outside of listening to this for your little earbuds, you can find us on Twitter at Omnic Lab with the same tag on Facebook. If you go into discord.me/Omnic Lab, you can find us through your browser and not through the app. We applied for partnership and got declined, so we have to get a little bit bigger in the community before they give us some partnerships. So if you guys want to make that happen, head over there. You can email the show, like Andres was saying, for your questions, for interviews if you want to put in some people, like drop some names. It helps even more if you're one of those names that want to come on the show. Please let us know over at omniclabpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to share the show, you can find us on iTunes and Google Play Music. If you want to support the show, it's over at Patreon and YouTube. If you want to watch it in a different way, over at Omnic Lab tags. And on Twitch, you can find us live streaming almost every weekend on Sundays. This week is a little different. We're on Monday because of some scheduling issues. But look for it there. The best way to find it is to follow us on our social media. If you guys like some sweet merch, I'm sporting one of our shirts today on the live stream. See if I can get this in the shot here. Basically, it's like a little V-neck, but we got hoodies now. You can go get those over at our website, omniclab.com. You can click the shop tab or links and then shop.
They look real
Andres,
good.
that's it for the show. What
That's
about you, man? Where can people find you?
All right. Personally, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. If you want to see what I'm up to, my own personal projects, I usually keep people updated on that. Also, when I go live on Twitch and the likes. If you want to follow me on Twitch and see me stream some Overwatch, sometimes Hearthstone, sometimes Heroes of the Storm, I've been playing lately. You can find me on Twitch TV/OmnicLab. I usually stream on the same channel, kind of just to keep things concise. And you can also find my Hearthstone podcast, Coin Concede. If you guys play Hearthstone and want to listen to some good talks about that, you can find it there. Yeah, and find me on Discord if you want to personally find me on the Omnic Lab Discord. I'm always there. You can always send me a personal message if you want to reach out to me. It's actually been my preferred method of communicating with everyone. It helps me keep everything really organized, and I can see what community you're a part of. It's great, especially for the gaming stuff. If you want to reach out for me in regards to that, Discord is a great place.
Same thing for me. You can find me over at Twitter and Facebook with the tag NotRob. Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want to check out some plays, I uploaded 6 new gameplays to my plays.tv of like 3 of them are just Lucio games. One of them is an Ana and Zenyatta game over at plays.tv/u/NotRob. I've been trying to upload some content there because Andres has got the streaming schedule. But ain't nobody got time to watch me stream on my schedule, and I don't even have the equipment to do that. So we're just gonna keep uploading some videos if you guys want to see it there. I'm trying to upload more videos where I still lose games, and perform well, but those games are a little bit few and far between because I get really tilted and I don't I don't know if you guys want to watch that, but I've uploaded a couple really close games. Well, this show's not PG-13. We already dropped an F-bomb, so we're gonna have to put that explicit tag on it. If you guys want to go check out another Hearthstone podcast, I am over there with the Velen's Chosen crew at vellenschosen.com, doing another podcast with just about budget stuff. There's not a whole lot of stuff going on until the release of Hearthstone's next expansion, hopefully at BlizzCon, at least news-wise. So buckle up, folks. We got a lot of stuff coming for a lot of games in the Blizzard universe. But that's it for episode number 26. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you console people got what your fix is this week. And don't be a lab rat. Be a scientist. Head over to the PTR, and we'll see you next week. Adios, Omnics.
Adios.
We're outie.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest